All right. Hello. Welcome, anybody who would listen to this. Today is an abnormal kind of episode for us and our first ever. This is just going to be our top 10 movies, and it's just with the idea of getting to know us as creators better and as people. Because, like, I'm not active on social media at all. I don't think you are either.
Not very much, no.
Okay. So I'm Josh, uh,
I'm Konlin. We
and
decided to put this together because we like talking about movies. This is what we do every week anyway, so we thought we might as well put a podcast together and see if you guys want to follow too.
with that, why don't we go ahead and get started with you, Conlon? Why don't you give us your 10 through 6?
Okay. So number 10 is Klaus, the animated movie on Netflix. It's about the start of Santa Claus, I guess is a good way to put it. And then I've got Bridge Over the River Kwai for number 9. Number 8 is The Great Escape. Number 7 is The Descent. And number 6 is Spider-Man 2.
So why Klaus? What made you put that in at number 10?
So Star Wars has been a big part of my life for a really, really long time. And The Last Jedi took a lot of the magic away for me. And I felt like that was happening in a lot of places in my life. I didn't really have the sense of wonder, the sense of like childlike awe that I really think we're all looking for, and that it resonates with everybody. Klaus changed that for me. I watched that movie and it was just wonderful. I loved everything about it. I loved the color scheme. I loved this message of hope, which I know is very Christmassy, but it worked for me in that with that movie in a way other movies haven't. I loved the voice acting. I loved literally everything about it. And in a time in my life where I didn't really find a lot of wonder and a lot of hope and a lot of joy, this movie comes in and I watch it over and over and over again. I think that Christmas when it first came out, I watched it like 16 or 17 times. It was ridiculous how much I watched this movie, but it filled a hole in me that was missing at that time.
Very well thought out and put. All right. Uh, Bridge over the River Kwai, you're number 9. Um, how do you feel like that movie has aged?
You can tell it's an old movie. I like old movies, but you can tell that um it has some cheesy acting. It has some cheesy special effects. But for the time period, I think the acting is solid. They did a really good job with the camera work that they had available to them. They did a good job bringing together the pieces that they had available at the time and making them work and telling a very compelling story. Um, yeah.
I haven't seen it. Would you recommend it to somebody who hasn't seen it before, or do you think it would just be too old at this point?
No, I absolutely think you could watch that movie, especially you being a history buff. I think it's a fantastic movie. For me, the reason that I have this one on the list is it was the first movie that made me contemplate people being bad. I had seen movies before, you'd seen Star Wars, different things like that, and there's a villain, but this made it real and expanded my world. In the culture that we grew up in, the the world around us is pretty small. Um, Everybody's kind of the same. You kind of do the same thing, and you're supposed to kind of fit into this box. But the river bridge over the River Kwai is about a completely different world, a horrible situation, the what it takes to really succeed and to be a hero, what sacrifice actually means. And it's the first time I remember really contemplating that in more of a real sense instead of a Star Wars Luke, I am your father kind of way, and it transformed me as a person.
Fair enough. All right, Spider-Man 2. I'm assuming we're talking about Toby. Toby.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best one.
Uh,
Um,
a lot of people would disagree with that. You know, there's one. There's some people like the Andrew Garfield ones for some reason. A lot of people are really happy with the Tom Holland ones. Why is
the
this one
only
for you?
Spider-Man that I actually think is better as far as the character of Spider-Man is the newer animated movies. I'm into the Spider-Verse. I think they do a good job with Peter in that one, and I actually think Peter is done better in those movies than in the original Spider-Mans. But the original Spider-Mans get the nerdiest really well done. They get the conflict within himself really well, and I think he acts that in a way that's convincing. Tom Holland, while a great actor, I actually think he's really good. I don't. I think he gets clumsy and he gets quirky, but I don't think he really comes across as fully nerdy like Spider-Man really should be. And the Tom Holland works more with a general audience because he is more just of a quirky kind of guy, but the real Spider-Man is nerdier than that. Do you get what I mean?
Well, that leads me into my next question. Like, how would you rank Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire as Peter Parkers?
Um, I have a hard time with that one because of Andrew Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield is almost a different character in Spider-Man 3 where he shows up in the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I know it's telling the story, but I think he does a significantly better job portraying the character in the short amount of time he has in that movie. And it kind of makes it so I have a hard time choosing between him and Tom Holland because they both do a very good job and they both are a unique set. As far as the amount of screen time that we have available, Tom Holland's probably better, but that's just because we've been giving more time. If Andrew Garfield got another movie where he was more the Spider-Man that we saw in the last Tom Holland movie, I
There's
think
gonna be a third one with him.
I think Andrew Garfield could take it. And then it would swap those two for which one was the lowest in my opinion.
Which one's on top? Which one's the best Peter
Obviously,
Parker? Which one's the best Spider Man? Because those are two different things to a lot of people.
that is two different things. That's a good question. I think actually Tom Holland plays a really good Spider-Man. I'd probably put him as the best Spider-Man, and then Toby I think is the best Peter, and then Andrew is not the best at either, but I think he has the possibility to be the best. I do think he has the possibility to be a better Peter than Tom.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one.
Okay,
I think that Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker. I think he portrays that
interesting.
quirky, uncomfortable, uh, very intelligent kind of person. It's a different take on Spider-Man because he's Spider-Man slash the new Iron Man kind of character. Um, so it's definitely a different take at the story. But I see Tom Holland and he looks like Peter Parker. He acts like Peter Parker. He's got the quirkiness of a Peter Parker. He's got the intelligence of a Peter Parker, and it all kind of comes together. Uh,
Oh,
I think
which
Andrew. Go ahead.
which version of Peter Parker? Because I think it matches more of like the new animated stuff. Because the new animated stuff, it makes Peter Parker more just quirky. If you go to something like the '90s animated stuff or the comic books, the character is more nerdy. And like we both really love the Spider-Man video game, right?
Yeah,
I think that is the best version of Peter Parker that we have really seen on the screen. Period. And I think Tobey Maguire matches that character more than Tom Holland does. Do you disagree?
I disagree. I think Tom Holland does. I
Interesting. Okay.
think that I think that Tobey Maguire is just a little bit too awkward. I think
Okay.
that Tobey Maguire, right? Like, do you really buy somebody who acts like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3 getting a girl like what is her name? Kristen Dunst? Like he's just a little too far, a little bit more on the spectrum than actually kind of nerdy, right? Like Tom Holland is a nerdy, shy, quiet, quirky kid. Tobey Maguire is a little bit more uncomfortable, which is not a bad thing. I think that that's more true to the Spider-Man character. I actually think that Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man. Um,
Really?
because if you could have somebody who acts like Tom Holland outside the suit, kind of doubt and shy and quiet and nerdy and whatever, and then have that swap of personalities where you're doing those stupid puns, you're beating up those bad guys, you're having that confidence because you're behind the mask. uh I think that that shows Andrew Garfield being the best Spider-Man. However, I think that Tobey Maguire is the best balance between the two,
Hmm.
because Andrew Garfield is still Spider-Man outside the suit, which is why I have a problem with him in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Tom
Do you
Holland,
do
same
you
kind of
think
thing. He
Andrew
doesn't change.
Garfield does a better job in that? Have you seen the third Tom Holland Spider-Man?
Yeah, the one where they all
Okay.
meet. Yeah,
Do you think Andrew Garfield? Do you agree with me on him being almost a different character in that movie?
they all are.
Okay,
Tobey Maguire is also very different in that movie,
that's
um,
true.
and I think it suits both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, because Tobey Maguire is this senior Spider-Man. He's the old
Yeah,
guy.
he's a
He's been around the block, and that
little
fits
less
his
quirky and
physique now. He's a little bit
yeah,
more confident. He's been doing it a while. And Andrew Garfield is in the position of, I'm a medium. I'm right there in the middle of these two Spider-Man in terms of experience. So they're no longer origin stories. So they've had that growth, whereas Tom Holland is still going through that growth. So it makes a really good balance. I think they all maximize their time on the screen. Of the three Spider-Man in that movie, I was most impressed with Tobey Maguire. Uh,
really.
Mostly because for me, it would be a lot harder for him to return to that role after what happened after Spider-Man 3 than it would for Andrew Garfield. Because if I were
Even
Andrew
though
Garfield,
everybody hates Spider-Man, I'm one of the only people that I've ever met that doesn't hate the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
well, that's because it's a terrible movie. But I have heard multiple people say that they like it.
Really, I've never met anybody else that liked that movie.
I've met a
I
number
don't.
of people. Most people say like, yeah, it has problems, and yeah, Jamie Foxx wasn't the best casting, and that ended up looking weird. But it was still a big shock there at the end, and they found good things in that movie. Um, I just think that Tobey Maguire, right? He has to step back into the shoes of one of the worst superhero movies ever created, one of the most hated superhero movies ever created, in a project that he was expecting to get 5 or 6 movies out of, and then had it kind of crunched down to one there at the end, right? Like,
I don't know if I would call it one of the most hated superhero movies because pretty much I hear the exact same thing from that movie. It was too stuffed. They should have just done Sandman. The Sandman storyline was pretty good. The Venom stuff was kind of dumb. Like,
yeah, but you're thinking about it now, you know, what is it, 20 years later?
yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, people have definitely cooled off a lot on it. I rewatched all three of them 6, 8 months ago or whatever, and I don't remember hating it. I don't hate it as much as I did originally. Um, but like at that time, man, like you had this project, you had this fame, you had this notoriety, whereas I feel like Andrew Garfield is still in the position of like, if I were him, I'd still want to prove that I can make a good Spider-Man movie, you know?
Okay,
Because the
and
first one
maybe
is not terrible, but it's still not great. And the second one is pretty bad. But I would be, if I were in his shoes, I would definitely be on the side of, I can do this. I know that I can do this if I was given a script to work with. And that's what I think that the third Tom Holland one did, was give him a script that he could actually work with and shine in.
Okay. Do you think it was that, or the fact that he's had a lot more acting gigs and he's a better actor?
I don't think he's a better actor because you have stuff like Hacksaw Ridge, which is a phenomenal movie, absolutely amazing.
It's so
And
good.
then you have him in his musical that is really tough to watch.
Oh, I actually like the musical.
I could not stand it. Now, to be fair, I don't like Rent as a musical either. So watching a musical about him writing Rent was not a big selling point for me, but I gave
That's
it a
fair.
try anyway, and I just think he didn't do a very good job in that movie.
Interesting. I thought it was really good. I like parts of Rent. I don't think it's great, but I thought that musical was really well done. I thought the musicality of your lead people was great. I thought he acted it really well.
I think there's a couple of good songs in it, but I will never watch that again. It wasn't like I hated it, and if somebody put it on, I wouldn't sit there and watch it with them, but it would
Okay.
not make my top 1,000 movies list.
It wouldn't. I don't think it'd make mine either, but I've seen it twice and I enjoyed it both times.
Uh, I saw it once and I was like, oh, that could have been quite a bit better. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I stand, at least with Spider-Man. Um,
That's fair, man.
so
I don't know. I love Spider-Man 2. I always have loved Spider-Man 2. And I actually like it more the older I get. I appreciate the whole storyline with him giving up the Spider-Man powers. And my favorite scene in that whole movie is where he's just walking around and he's got the nerdiest smile on his face and he's just so happy with his backpack and looking like a dork. And he's walking to the school and there's crime going on and he just decides to walk inside anyway. And he has this moment where he gets to choose who he is. Um and he gets to choose to just be simple and just be this nerdy guy that kind of walks in the shadows. He's not swinging on rooftops. He's not having people scream his name. He's just being him. And what does that really mean? How does that equate to your own life of, can you just be you, or do you always have to be shooting for some kind of spotlight? If you are in that spotlight, can you just leave that spotlight? Can you drop it and not hold on to all of these pieces? Just let them go. And I think that idea is fantastic. I love the villain in the movie. I love pretty much everything about the movie. There's nothing that I would really change. But I really, really love, and it's the idea of leaving that power behind that cements it in that top 10 for me. It's fantastic.
that's interesting. I definitely have a similar message from it, but not the same one.
What's yours?
For me, that movie is all about him being his choice as well, but it being his choice to be that powerful, not to choose to give it up,
Interesting.
right? Because the
I love
first
that
one's
part
all
too.
about, him being given this power unexpectedly and him feeling guilt over his uncle's death and him feeling responsible for it, but him actually choosing that responsibility versus that responsibility choosing him is a very different message. And that's what I took from it. That's why I go with, take on that responsibility, choose that responsibility mentality versus don't wait for it to just come and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, I love that too. And I love the aspect of, he leaves this power behind, but then what is worth bringing it back and bringing all the struggles that come with that kind of responsibility. You have that whole great power comes great responsibility line, and it really, the fact that he's able to leave it and the fact that he has to choose to bring it back really puts a lot of power behind that message. And then what do you
See,
do in
I
your own
don't think he
life when you
has
get
to
that
choose
opportunity?
that. That's what I like about it. He doesn't
What?
have to. He doesn't have to choose to go back to being Spider-Man.
That's true. That's true. But my what I'm saying is what makes it worth making that choice. He doesn't have to. You're right. But what is worth making that choice? And is it saving Mary Jane? Is it standing up for his aunt? Is it living? Is it being the kind of person that Uncle Ben wanted him to be? Does that really matter to him? Does he just want to be himself, or does he want to be this ideal? Like he chooses that. You're right, but what makes that choice worth it? And that's fascinating to me.
Well, it's because that's the person he wants to be now. It's no longer about Ben or Mary Jane or the city or the notoriety or the fame or any of that. It's he's choosing to be Spider-Man because he wants to be Spider-Man.
I think it's deeper than that. I think he's choosing to be Spider-Man because he wants what he can do with the Spider-Man power and character, what he can become, what he can act, what he can pursue. Um, and that includes saving Mary Jane. He has this opportunity to do something that he couldn't do without the power, and it's worth it. So maybe we're saying the same thing. I don't know, but I feel like it's deeper than that.
I am definitely saying exactly that. Like, yeah, there's more reasons to it, but it's an inside force now.
That's true.
It's
That's true.
it's all about himself choosing to be that person, right? It it's to help save Mary Jane. It's to protect the people he loves. It's to, you know, keep Ben's memory alive. It's to do all of those things, but it's for himself now. It's not a responsibility from the outside world or from his guilt or from
That's
anything
because
else.
it's what
It's
he
because
wants.
he wants to do.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Well, that
all
is
right,
my 10 through 6. Let's go to yours. What's your number 10?
my number 10 is Remember the Titans, one of the greatest sports movies of all time. Uh, my number 9 is Midway, the 2019 version. Number 8 is Count of Monte Cristo, greatest revenge story of all time, without a doubt, nothing better. My number 7 is Warrior, and my number 6 is Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. And with Remember the Titans, I think it's a good movie. I've always thought it was a good movie, but I feel like sports movies try to accomplish kind of the same thing. You have a team of underdogs. How are these underdogs going to overcome it and do something great? Or with something like Rudy, you have this one underdog, and how's this underdog going to overcome it and do something great in sports? So why Remember the Titans versus something like Rudy or Draft Day, Longest Yard, Miracle? There's a ton of them. Miracle is actually my favorite as far as this kind of movie goes. Why
Okay.
Remember the Titans?
Because it's the best one.
Okay,
Uh, for me, if I were to replace it, greatest game ever played, the golf one with Shia LaBeouf, is my number 2 sports movie. Um, but this one does it a lot better, as well as the impact of history. It's a lot bigger than the sport or the underdog or the whatever, right? Because the
okay,
Titans weren't underdogs.
that's true.
The Titans were in their own way. It's more about prejudices and racism and that kind of stuff. Uh, when we get to our books, To Kill a Mockingbird is like Not the best book of all time, but I do rate it as one of the books that everybody should read in their lifetime. And Remember the Titans is a movie that everybody should watch in their lifetime.
Okay.
As for, your comparisons, Rudy, I'm not the biggest fan of Rudy. It's a good movie, and it is just that one underdog works really hard, gets his chance, and, plays for Notre Dame, which is enjoyable and it's good, it's great, but it's not amazing. Miracle uh, is pretty good, but it's the same. It's an underdog team, right? U.S. going with all amateurs to the Olympics, uh, doing, you know, overcoming great odds, trying a new strategy, and winning at the end. Um, Draft Day is not a sports movie. Um, Longest Yard sucks.
Not
Uh,
the Adam Sandler one, the old one. Have you seen the old one?
I haven't seen the old one.
Okay, the old one's really good. The Adam Sandler one wasn't great.
Um, but yeah, I recently watched Miracle. I recently watched We Are Marshall.
Okay, that one's really good too. That would have been a good
I
one to
think
add.
that's super overrated.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's not well put together for what it's trying to be. Like, it's an okay movie, but that one has like such notoriety and love. I don't understand.
Interesting. I think it's a really good movie. It's another one of the top sports movie shows to me.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely not. It's got a lot of missed opportunities there. They could have definitely emphasized, trauma, or it could have been more about people coming together and how playing football, helps through trauma and that kind of stuff. But
Something like
instead,
Concussion, maybe,
yeah,
if you've
a
seen
little
that
bit
movie.
more,
Yeah.
yeah. But instead, it's just about them trying to put a team together and, Matthew McConaughey just being on screen with extremely blue eyes. Like, that's all the movie is. And it's fine, it's a good movie, but it is not a top sports movie.
That's interesting, man. It's a great movie. It's a good, solid choice. I actually see it as people's favorite movie a lot.
I see
So,
that too, and I just I personally don't understand that choice. But also, like, I didn't watch it till later in life, so maybe they have a little bit more nostalgic feeling for it, or maybe they just don't realize that that was only one of two wins that team had for like 10 years.
is
But
there any chance that Remember the Titans is nostalgia to you, or
oh yeah, the
okay,
history of that movie definitely plays a role.
okay,
I've been watching that movie since I was a little kid, plain and simple. Same with Greatest Game Ever Played. It's one I watched when I was a little kid. It's one I've watched quite a few times after that. Uh, Rudy, I think I've only seen twice. Like I said, Draft Day, I don't think is a sports movie, and Miracle, I think I've only seen twice as well.
okay. Then there's a lot of them like Moneyball and so many different options, but
Moneyball is
that's a good
also
choice,
not
man.
a sports movie.
I think Moneyball is a sports movie
It's not. Same reason that Draft Day is not a sports movie.
because it's about sports instead of or about the behind the scenes of sports.
It's a finance movie.
I guess it is more of an algorithm type movie.
It's about a smart guy using his intelligence to put together an algorithm and a strategy. It's not actually about the sport,
It's okay. That's fair. That's fair.
right? I would put that under, what is it, The Big Short? I would put those movies in
Yeah.
the same category.
Okay. That's fair. It's not something like Secretariat or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's a good choice. And then we've got Midway. Um, normally we're not that into remakes. Have you seen the original Midway?
A long, long, long time ago. I don't remember it much.
Okay. And did you have you debated going back to it since you love this one so much, or is it you're just good with the 2019 version?
I'm just good with the 2019 version. I am okay with remakes so long as they're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
Uh, Midway is largely the same story. It just looks better, right? In
Yeah,
fact, they increased the historical accuracy, to my knowledge. They made it
that's very
more
cool.
accurate to history. So when all you're doing is increasing visuals and making it better to enjoy, like why is that a bad thing? I think the same thing about that mystery. What is it? I forgot what it is. Um, it's the Who Done It on the train.
Oh, yeah, what is that called? Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah, I prefer the remake of that one as well, because all it did was make it more visually, improved the audio, improved the visuals. Other than that, it's just the same,
It's the exact same
you
movie.
know. And that's
It
the
pretty much is.
criticism that people hated it for was, hey, you didn't do anything to change it. It's still the same movie. And I'm saying, yeah, that's how remakes should be. You should only remake stuff with this purpose in mind.
Is there any remakes that you wouldn't be cool with that with? Like if they took the original Star Wars and they literally kept the exact same script but put in different actors and made it prettier, what would you think about that?
It entirely depends on how they did it or what their motivation was.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to talk too much about politics on this podcast. In fact, I really don't want to. But if their motivation is turning Luke black and Leia Asian, and right, if that's their
Yeah.
motivation behind doing it, then okay, like probably not going to be my thing. But if somebody just loves the project, has a passion for the project, and just wants to reintroduce the original Star Wars to a new generation in a way that they would enjoy it. Like I would actually be more down for it if they released it shot for shot in an anime,
Interesting. Okay.
because
I kind of
animations are
like that
just
idea actually.
never gonna age,
No,
never gonna age. So if you just redid it shot for shot, you could even reuse the same audio because the audio is not bad. Um, use James Earl Jones' Darth Vader voice, use Mark Hamill's voice, all that kind of stuff. Just animate it. Wow, I would be way down for that. Way to go. Like, that's what a remake should be. It should be, hey, this thing is old and it's great.
okay. I
But
like
it
that.
needs a little revamp for newer generations because it's kind of old, right? Like, Bridge Over the River Kwai, we were just talking about. I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to get into it simply because of how old it looks.
There is a lot of that, unfortunately, where people won't give old things a chance. And if they did do the same story again, it could be a great movie. I don't know if it'd make it a great movie. I think they'd make it too bombastic. I'm trying to think of a good example where they redid an old movie and then they made it feel too 0070, but I can't think of one right now. I know that there is, but I can't think of one right now.
Well, that definitely does happen. Like I said, it would essentially have to be a shot for shot remake. The difference with Bridge Over the River Kwai or something like To Kill a Mockingbird is the age of the movie actually helps with the historics of the movie,
I agree completely,
right?
actually.
So I wouldn't remake To Kill a Mockingbird because I think it being black and white helps it, doesn't hurt it. But like if somebody wanted to remake Wizard of Oz, right? Go for it.
I think they
Just
actually
honor and
absolutely should
love
do
the
that one.
project. Yeah, keep the original black and white just like they did, and then just revamp and vitalize the colors, and
Yeah. And with
that'll
Wicked
be
coming
it.
out, I think that would be a perfect one to do because you could have double feature of both of those movies and have them revamped and introduce the entire storyline back to audiences now. And honestly, The Wizard of Oz just feels ancient to me. I watched that one a little bit later in life, and it was pretty overrated in my opinion.
I never really loved or hated it, but I had a math teacher in high school that was obsessed with it, and I have not been able to watch it since because she sucked, and it makes me hate the movie.
That sucks.
But oh well.
Oh well. So I think a lot of people don't know about Warrior. They just don't know the movie. Can you explain what it's about? Because people really should watch this movie. It's great, guys. It's really good.
I don't like giving the synopsis to this movie because I feel like it gives too much of it away when you're
Interesting.
trying to
Okay.
talk about it. Because honestly, it's a pretty good movie until you get to the reveal, right? And in hindsight, you definitely see the signs of the reveal a lot earlier. But essentially, you have a high school physics teacher, I think, chemistry teacher. I don't remember what he teaches. Um,
I think it's physics.
but he's struggling financially. He's trying to provide for his wife and family, and grew up doing UFC stuff and decided to go back into it to try and earn some extra money. For a while, he did it behind his wife's back, um, but then decides to try and take it to the Super Bowl of MMA, which is a fictional thing that's created for this movie. Um, and then from then, it's pretty much just Rocky for him. Meanwhile, you have an ex army guy coming back to the States. Uh, he's trying to earn money for his soldier brother who passed away. He's trying to provide for, he promised that he would take care of that guy's family. So he's trying to earn money to take care of them. So he enters this competition as well. Uh, that's all I really have to say about it to those who haven't seen it. It is very much an under the radar show. I didn't watch it till 2019, um, but it is fantastic, absolutely amazing. I could watch this movie multiple times a year and enjoy it. It is kind of a sports movie as well, but really great. Whether you like sports or MMA or not, it's enjoyable for just about everybody. I don't think anybody could watch it and not get something out of it, which is truly, truly amazing.
Yeah, my wife isn't into the whole MMA type thing at all, and she loved this movie. It's I wouldn't have watched it if Josh hadn't shown it to me. It is fantastic. It's just a great time. Um, and then the last one, Empire Strikes Back. Why this Star Wars versus all the others? I love Empire. I love Star Wars. I've always loved Star Wars. We'll get into which one is my favorite here in a little bit, but I, I kind of feel like a lot of people like Empire best because you're supposed to like Empire best. Why do you like Empire best?
It carries the most weight,
Okay.
plain and simple. Luke, I am your father. Like, how many children did that affect? Like, there was an outrage. People were calling Vader a liar, even though his name literally means father. Like, Vader is German for father, and they had to add a scene to return just to confirm that it wasn't a lie, you know? Um, I think Return and Empire are very close in quality and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. But Empire's just got that weight of having that impact, you know? Um, so it's just simply that one line that just makes it that little bit better. You have real loss it's all about resiliency, unlike the other two. And I love a story about resiliency.
That's cool. Warrior honestly has that a little bit. So Count of Monte Cristo does, Midway does, and Remember the Titans do. They are all about resiliency in a lot of
Yeah,
ways. That's
yeah,
cool.
love resiliency. I think it's a skill I need to work on a lot, but it's a top skill to have. Resiliency is like a top skill somebody could have. And I just
That's
love a good
awesome,
story
man.
about it. All right, Conlin, go ahead and go 5 through 2.
Okay. My fifth one is Return of the Jedi. Then I have Goodwill Hunting, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, and Ratatouille.
So why do you pick Return over Empire?
I think they're both fantastic movies, but every single time I've watched it, I actually remember the first time I watched the original series. I remember it, and I got bored in the City in the Sky part of the movie that is so famous, and I think I have thought it was kind of dull my entire life. That part. I am widely in the minority with this one, but the whole Luke, I am your father. People make fun of Luke. I need to go get power converters. That line, but the no, I think is so cheesy. I love these movies. That doesn't mean I don't think that they're great, but that line I think is so cheesy, and it ruins the tension of that scene to me. Um, the rest of the movie, absolutely fantastic. Meeting Yoda, not knowing that Yoda is the master, unbelievable, absolutely great. The asteroid part is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. Love it. Now, Return of the Jedi has my favorite movie scene, period, and that's the throne room. I love the throne room scene. I can just rewatch the throne room scene. I could rewatch it every single month. I think it's fantastic. Um, you also have like in How I Met Your Mother, Barney goes through a curve on if you like Ewoks versus if you don't like Ewoks. I freaking love Ewoks. I love these little guys that take out this larger group. I love the underdog type of a story. I think it's fantastic. I think the acting is incredible. I like the jealousy aspect with Harrison Ford, but he still is this rugged scoundrel type character and how he has to deal with that back and forth. I love the idea that Ben is still watching over Luke and having to deal with that. The very first opening scene where he walks up and he's shrouded in the cloak and you just get this badass vibe. I'm like, I've waited for Luke to just feel like a badass for so long, and here we go. We're here. He's doing it. And I love that about the movie. I think it's where Empire has that scene, that part of the movie that to me is honestly kind of weak. I don't get that with Return. I love everything about that movie. Every single bit.
That's understandable. I'm kind of with you on the Cloud City. I think it drags out just a little bit too much and is kind of slow. I disagree with you about the no line because I mean that's a reaction that somebody would have. And if you are upset at cheese, you shouldn't like any of the original trilogy or most of
I
Star
know.
Wars for that matter.
But I can handle some cheese. I don't think someone would respond like that, and that's my problem. Is it's like B horror movie kind of response. It is so unbelievably over the top.
I don't think so. The guy just lost his hand and found out that the villain is his father. Right? Like
Yeah,
what would
he's
you
dealing
put
with a
in
lot.
there? What would you
I
put
just would
there?
I would have toned it down a little bit. It is overacted to me to a point where it does kind of draw you out of the movie.
Okay. I disagree with it.
Just a
I think
little
it's
bit.
just
I
Star
don't even think it
Wars.
would take that much. Just a little bit.
But okay. Why did Return, Goodwill Hunting, Two Towers, Ratatouille? Why did each of those make your top five? What's your reasoning
So
for each of those?
Goodwill Hunting is a story about, in a lot of ways to me, a story about arrogance. And I can be super, super, super arrogant. Like I'm just, I can be. And I constantly have to turn that down and think about it. And Goodwill Hunting is like, it's really well done with therapy. Um, it's very realistic in the way that it handles things, and for me it's a movie therapy. It reminds me to be humble, it reminds me to be a better person, it reminds me to center myself and listen to other people and not think I'm better than everybody else and that I know everything. It makes me want to learn and want to grow, and I can't really give a better accommodation to a movie than that. Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers is because it is the most badass movie that have ever been a badass movie. It,
So a lot of people with the Two Towers, they say it's the slowest one.
I just don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. You have the Gandalf reveal. You have the orcs have hunted down these two hobbits and we have to figure out where they are. You have the intrigue with this king that's getting poisoned, and how do you get rid of that poison? And then you have that king realize that his son is dead. You have the most epic battle period in anything that has ever been done with Helm's Deep. It's just freaking incredible. And the entire movie is such a ride from beginning to end. I I love it. And it's one that I can watch over and over again without getting bored, and every single time it thrills me. In my honorable mentions, I'm going to bring up Zombieland, but it's in my honorable mentions because every single time that movie makes me laugh. There aren't a lot of movies that give you that same feeling no matter how many times you watch it. And for me, The Two Towers, every time I watch it, it's just badass. It's just a thrill. It's just invigorating. I love it.
And what do you say to those people that say it cuts around too much?
I maybe it doesn't bug me as much because I've read books my entire life, and in books that's what happens. So I don't know. It just wasn't that big of a deal to me.
Do you agree that it does cut around more than the other two?
I've never thought about that. I want to say I think the third one cuts around a little bit more, and the first one definitely doesn't cut as much, but that's because the group is all together. You're not following these separate journeys nearly as much.
But in Two
Um,
Towers, that's when they're split up the most.
I don't think so because in
Merry and
the third one,
Pippin,
Return of the King,
Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, Gandalf, Frodo, Sam. There's four different groups there.
yeah, but in Return of the King, you've got Gandalf doing his own thing. You've got Merry. You've got Pippin. They're doing their separate things. You've got the
They're with
Rohirrim and all of
Gandalf
those
and
characters.
with the other group. They're
Uh,
not on their own.
Merry basically is for most of the movie. Like he's with Gandalf some, but they're telling two different stories. You're cutting back and forth. And yes, you're cutting from the
He's
bottom of the
with
city to the top of the
Aragorn.
city.
He's with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli
Oh yeah,
until they split off, and then he's with Theoden just for the
yeah,
fight.
or Pippin, I guess. And those they are together more with that part. You're right. But Merry or Legolas and Aragorn and Gimli go off into the undead chasm thing, and those are separate stories. And then you
But it's
have,
not one that cuts back and forth all the time.
does it not cut as? I feel like it cuts just as much, but maybe
I
I'm just being
I think
crazy.
they show the entrance, them going into the cave, and then
Yeah,
they cut back and then they tell them going through the cave, and then they cut to the river when they're showing up for battle.
In the original version, yeah. In the extended version, it cuts back and forth more because you're seeing more of the cave. It cuts to the cave, it cuts out, then it
I don't
cuts
think it
to.
does. I think it does it all the cave in one shot.
I don't think so. I think there are two cuts.
But anyway, I do think that Two Towers does cut back and forth and is a little bit more jarring that way than the other two. But I agree with you, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I had never thought about it until I had
Me
heard
either.
that argument.
I hadn't heard that argument. I didn't know people worried about it. It seems like, I guess, if you haven't read a lot of fantasy books, but fantasy books just do that.
Some do, yeah. Um, but yeah, it never bothered me. I am not a reader. I'm not into fantasy books, and it didn't bother me one bit. Because it's not like they were pulling you out. I think the cuts are very well placed, and I don't think it draws you out of the story. Everything is pretty much chronological. Some stuff does happen at the same time, so you go through one point, then jump back to that point and go back through. Uh, but it's not like one person's in the middle of a fight, cut away to somebody having a conversation, cut away to somebody walking across the land, cut to back to fight. You know, it's very
Yeah,
much
you
like,
have this sequence of events, and it feels like that sequence closes out before they cut to the next sequence.
yeah,
Besides, may the only thing I could see where people would maybe have a problem is the cut with the what was the forest called? The other forest? Anyway, with Merry and Pippin and with the other group that's tracking them, Aragorn, Legolas. And that cut back and forth could be a little bit jarring, but I think it works with the reveal of Gandalf, and I don't think if they would have cut it in any other way, it would have come together as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Ratatouille. What put that in your top five?
Again, it's just magic.
It's
I
your
love the
only. Well, you also have Klaus, but
yeah. I have Klaus and I have Ratatouille. I love both of these movies because they fill you with magic. Um, I loved exploring a different world, this idea of France, and I've never really gotten the whole idea of the romantic city and all that kind of stuff. It never made sense to me. But they're able to convey that through this movie. They're able to convey a love of art and how art can transform the world around you. At that time in my life, I really wasn't into art. I wasn't into musicals. I wasn't into any of this kind of stuff. And Ratatouille opened my eyes to all of it. Because if food can be art, why can't anything be else? So I started exploring dance, and I like watching dance now. I like watching musicals now. I like watching cooking shows now, and I enjoy paintings, and I enjoy artwork, and I enjoy going to museums, and it kind of all started with Ratatouille. Um,
you just nailed why I hate art. But okay,
really,
yeah, anything and everything is art. So stupid.
I think there. I mean, there's art that I think is good, and there's art that I think is bad. Pouring soup on, was it a Da Vinci or Donatello or something? I don't know. Anyway, very, very famous painting. That's not art. That's ridiculous. The modern art where people just like flick paint at a wall, or we literally went to a modern art museum because I thought I'd give it a shot. And I really think somebody just got sticks and dirt and forgot that there was a canvas underneath it, and they picked it up and they're like, let's go see if we can put this in a museum. It's ridiculous. But there's also a lot of beauty to be had in the world, and Ratatouille opened my eyes to that,
I agree
in a
with
way
you.
that
I just
really
hate
nothing
that
else has.
definition of art.
Okay,
Of
okay,
anything and everything can be art. If food can be art, anything can be art. I hate that.
really,
I love art. I am also into musicals. I am also into dance and singing and art showings of artistic talent, especially since that is like the weakest thing in my skill set. Uh, but anything and everything being art, I hate that definition. I think it's terrible, and I think that that's why modern art museums exist. And
Interesting.
modern art is stupid.
Modern art is terrible. It is terrible. But the idea that art can come from anywhere, I think is true. I think you can find art. You can find art in a mountainside. You can find art in if you understand it in somebody's code where it's just beautiful. I've heard people who are into code talking about that and how creative and wonderful this piece of work that somebody put together is. You can find art all around you, and I didn't appreciate that nearly enough. I didn't appreciate that at all.
It's fair. Fair, fair.
But those are my 5 through 2. Now let's go over to yours. What do we got?
My number 5 is A Knight's Tale. Heath Ledger, way to go. Followed up, number 4, another Heath Ledger, 10 Things I Hate About You. My number 3 is Batman Under the Red Hood. And my number 2 is Lord of the Rings Two Towers.
Okay, so for the audience, I'm going to be completely honest. I saw this one beforehand and I was completely shocked, like unbelievably shocked that 10 Things I Hate About You was on the list and that it is above A Knight's Tale. A Knight's Tale is in my honorable mentions. It's a fantastic movie, like really, really good. Completely understand why it would be in your top 10. Totally get it. Why in the world is 10 Things I Hate About You in the top 10 movies of all time?
I think it's absolutely fantastic at what it does. I think it is the essence of, 90s rom com, which to me is the best era of rom coms, is
Okay,
about 1993 to like 2004 ish, is when all the best rom coms came out. Um, I looked over your questions, and the proposal is very unbelievably amazing to me.
hmm,
And in terms of quality, is probably worth being on my top 10 list. But 10 Things I Hate About You and A Knight's Tale have something that no other movie on my list has, and that is time with my two sisters. Um,
okay,
we would put up our projector outside and sit on the tramp, and we would watch those two movies together.
that's
My
really
two
cool.
sisters, my little brother, sometimes an older sibling. Um, but those two movies were the go tos. There's a few other go to movies that, my whole family kind of watched. Um, we'll go over one of them in one of my honorable mentions, Anastasia, um, that I have a connection to with my second oldest brother. Um, he loved it growing up, so I watched it a lot with him, and so I have that kind of tie. Um, but whereas my sisters are very artistic, they both play the piano. They're both very talented and gifted. I didn't have as many things to bond with them on as a child, but A Knight's Tale and 10 Things I Hate About You, I had those.
That's really cool. I love that story. Why is 10 Things I Hate About You higher than A Knight's Tale? To me, honestly, I sound like I'm hating on 10 Things I Hate About You. I think it's a pretty good movie. There are other rom-coms that I like better, but I think it's a pretty good movie. I objectively think A Knight's Tale is a better movie out of those two.
I disagree. I think 10 Things I Hate About You is, persistence and resilience. And I think A Knight's Tale is a little bit more predictable and a little bit slower at the beginning. So I
Interesting.
think
But
10 Things I Hate About You is just a little bit more well rounded, even movie throughout the entire thing.
if I think of movies that are about resistance, one of my favorite movies would be A Knight's Tale. That is the personification of somebody who will not back down and just keeps going no matter how much crap is thrown at him. He literally goes from being well, for people who haven't seen it, uh, he goes from being very lowly to in a position in life because of persistence.
Yes, but it takes a while to get there.
Okay. Doesn't persistence take a while?
Yes, but 10 Things I Hate About You, we're just talking about why 10 Things I Hate About You is better than A Knight's Tale in my list by
Okay.
one slot is because the beginning is just easier. They don't have to establish a world and all this
Okay.
kinds of stuff. You can just get into it and enjoy it. And there's particular one thing about A Knight's Tale that I don't love, and that's
Okay.
that what's his name? The guy shows up naked.
Oh,
Completely unnecessary. Doesn't help his character. Doesn't help anything. Completely unnecessary. I don't need to see that. Children don't need to see that. People don't need to see that. Don't love that. But
I agree that they could have shown that he was not wearing clothes without showing his rear end. They didn't need to do
he
that.
didn't need to not be wearing clothes.
I think them not wearing clothes actually affects his story quite a bit.
What if he
Um,
was in underwear? Tell me, how does that change things?
because I know it's not a historically accurate movie. It's not, but being naked was a shameful thing. And I don't think that being partially naked, especially during a time period where some people would have just been like that, would have had the same effect
People at
when you're
that
trying to
time
tell your
period would
story.
have been more naked.
Yeah,
But to
but not.
us, the viewer, it would not have changed the story or the impact of it at all.
I think for what they were trying to show with the time period, it would have. And I know that, like I said, I know it's not historically accurate, but they did try to include historically accurate aspects. And the
I'm
shame that's
saying
involved with being
back then,
naked versus being in your
historically,
underwear is massively different. Like, Josh, go outside and walk around in your underwear or go outside and walk around naked. I'm sure you're going to feel a little bit different. You're
that's
going to be
today,
awkward
though.
either way, but you're going to feel a little bit different. And it would have been even more stark then because going around in your underwear, while unfortunate, would have happened more.
No,
While
going
going
around
around
naked would
naked,
have happened more.
that's true too. It also would have happened more.
No, not
But there,
like people would have been naked and starving. You would have seen that kind of stuff more often than today. I think you're putting today's standards, while different, on that historical thing. Back then, I don't think you would have been more shameful naked than in your underwear.
okay, interesting.
It's the
We
feudal
should look
age.
into that. I'm curious.
Everybody's starving, everybody's poor,
Yeah, you just
everybody's
have your
wearing
linen cloth
rags.
on.
There's no such thing as modesty. Everybody's got bumps and scrapes and diseases, and like, for the feudal age, it was not accurate at all.
And actually, with the people that are the lenders, that is the reason that he's naked. It would have shown some kind of, I don't know, grace, peace. I don't know. They're supposed to be very ruthless, shameful kind of people. And I think if you leave him some kind of honor, that takes away from those characters also.
I think we're just disagreeing fundamentally because I don't think that there's a difference in the amount of shame that he would
Okay.
feel.
Interesting. I
But
do think
to
there's a
me,
difference
as
there.
a viewer, I don't need to see that. Whether you imply he's naked and just don't actually show it, or have him in underwear, makes no difference to me.
So, but if it makes a difference to the story, why would it matter? I agree. Let's
It doesn't make a
not
difference to the
show,
story.
but I think it does to a point, and to
I don't think
me,
it does. You still
not
have him
show.
losing all of his clothes. You still have Heath Ledger showing up and showing him grace and mercy. You still have them showing back up later and saying, "Oh, well, we did it to teach him a lesson because Jesus." And like it doesn't change his story at all.
But like, let's say that it doesn't show his butt. Why does it matter if he's wearing under? Why would it be better that he's wearing underwear versus, okay, they didn't show it, but he's obviously naked, and from the dialogue we know that he's naked. Which they could have kept the dialogue the exact same and just not shown his rear end, and then where it's just, it would have been the exact same movie.
Like I said, they can do that. I don't want to see that. I don't think children should see that. They had
Interesting.
two
Okay.
avenues to go with. I don't think it makes any difference, and I don't think showing that ever actually does add anything.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but anyway, so yeah, that is my 4 through 2. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about Batman Under the Red Hood. It's obviously a great movie. If you guys haven't seen it, you should watch it. Why is that your favorite? And I'm actually, well, we'll go through the honorable mentions earlier, but I wanted to see this. You don't have any other Batmans in your honorable mentions, so why that went so far ahead of any of these others?
Well, let's get it. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Dark Knight,
Okay.
Heath Ledger again, Joker, great actor, great role, fantastic movie. Why is that not an honorable mention or in my top 10? Well, I really love Batman movies that are show the toll on Batman.
Okay.
Dark Knight is a phenomenal movie. I love it a lot. It's probably a top 20 movie if I'm being honest.
Okay.
But the more and more I think about it, the more and more I realize, well, I would probably put Dark Knight Returns Part 1, Part 2 above it as well. And
Interesting. Okay.
possibly even Return of Joker above that as well. Simply because all three of these, Dark Knight Returns, not Dark Knight Rises to the listeners, not Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight Returns, animated movie, animated made for TV movie, Part 1, Part 2, uh, and Return of Joker are all movies that show the weight of the time that Batman spends being Batman, as well
Hmm.
as pushing him to that edge. You know, Dark Knight is just about Joker. It's fantastic and I love it, but it's not a Batman movie. It's a Joker movie. And um, there's a lot of stuff about that trilogy that is amazing and that I love. Batman Begins, Batman Dark Knight, Batman Dark Knight Rises. Fantastic trilogy. Love Christopher Nolan's version. Love the uh, darker aspect of it, but none of them really show any toll on Batman other than when he loses Rachel, right? He's just
Yeah.
being Batman because it's fun for him. It's interesting, you know. It's there's not a big character there. It's more about the villains, which I love about it. But yeah, Batman Under the Red Hood is my favorite. It's about that toll on Batman for those who haven't seen it, which I'm not going to say for any other movie older than 10 years because past 10 years, I don't care about spoilers. Um, Batman loses Robin to the Joker, right? The whole movie is about Batman dealing with that grief. And it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's real. You can connect with it in that way. You can't connect with Dark Knight. At least I can't.
That was a great answer. I loved that answer. I've never heard anyone say The Dark Knight is a Joker movie, not a Batman movie. And I'm one of the few people that like Batman Begins better than The Dark Knight that I've ever talked to. And I think that that might be why. And I've never thought about that before. I love that. It's still a very good movie. But everything you said about being able to connect with the story of Under the Red Hood, I 100% agree with. That was fantastic, man.
Yeah,
I love that.
it's phenomenal. It came out. Let's see. I'm gonna Google it really quick. It came out in 2010. I didn't watch it for the first time until like 2018, and it was probably at your recommendation too. Um,
Yeah, it was.
I kind of grew up in this mentality of like animations for kids, no stupid kid shows, that kind of stuff. So like, I also didn't watch Avatar: The Last Airbender until later in life because that was just a dumb anime, and animes for nerds and animations for kids. And so while I wasn't consciously doing that throughout my teens, um, that was more of like a conscious thought when I was in middle school. Um, it definitely carried over because like those were just movies I just wasn't interested in watching. Uh, gave Under the Red Hood a shot. Absolutely loved every second of it because that movie starts going, slows down, gives you the weight. Fantastic story, plot, everything, as well as it just being real and giving you something to connect with. I think everybody can connect with grief in some way. So
I agree.
that's
That's really
that's
cool.
why that one is there.
All right. I'll go through my honorable mentions quick. We can go through yours. My honorable mentions, first one is About Time. It's my favorite romance movie of all time. It's about a guy who can go back in time in his own life, and I think it uses the mechanic incredibly well. Zombieland, like I said, it just consistently makes me laugh no matter how many times I watch it. Wild America, which is about kind of the start of Natural Geographic. I think it's a wildly underrated show. I really, really like it. Raid 2 is one of the most badass kung fu fighting, amazing action packed shows that I've ever seen. Wreck is a Spanish horror film, and I usually don't like found footage, and I don't like uh, super simple acting, is what I'll say. Um, this movie works because the found footage has a reason for it. It's a news reporter who's just trying to figure out something to cover with the news. She kind of wants her big break, and she these people think that they're getting mistreated because they're not being allowed outside, and so she goes inside trying to follow the story. So she's keeping this recording camera on the entire time to get this big scoop for her first time in her life. And the end of this movie is one of the few horror movies that has scared the living hell out of me. It is creepy. It's terrifying. It is one I would highly recommend to people. A lot of people haven't seen it unless you're a huge horror buff. Shawshank Redemption is just a great movie. It's about freedom. Rear Window is a classic in the whole mystery genre, and I think it's very well shot. I think it's very well acted, and I think it's a creative, well done movie. Grave of the Fireflies is a movie that taught me about compassion. It's from the kid's point of view after we bombed Hiroshima and the devastation that they're living through and trying to get where they need to go during this journey. Super good. Your Name is another romantic anime. Um, it does dream sequences and connection in a really unique way. And then A Knight's Tale, I think this is going to sound maybe a little weird, but Guardians of the Galaxy has this group, and the group comes together, and you have this great dynamic with the group, and you have the songs and you have all of that. I think it was inspired by A Knight's Tale. A Knight's Tale did it first, and in my opinion, did it better. Very similar tonal kind of movie. Those are my honorable mentions. And let's do your honorable mentions, and then we can just do number ones back and forth. Does that sound good? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, sounds good. For my honorable mentions, I have Anastasia. Watched it growing up, love it. It's fantastic. Uh, growing a lot as a kid. Um, then I have Finding Neverland. We talked about the feeling of magic and wonder. I think it's one of the best movies that does stuff like that. And then I have The Proposal, fantastic rom com.
So I have to tell a story about this one. My wife is a little older than me, and there's that part where they're dancing and they're like, "Oh, skeet skeet," and they do the ritual. My wife loves this movie. She's watched it a million times, and she had no idea that that was an actual song. I had to. We were at some kind of dance. I can't remember what we were at, but the song comes on, and she's like, "Wait, did they record this after they did the proposal? What? What?" She had no clue, and I find it hilarious. I still make fun of her today.
Yep, good. Then I have The Prestige, Ryan Reynolds, favorite Hugh Jackman movie of all time. Stacked cast. You have great cast, great
Oh, I
movie.
see.
Revenge, resilience, great plot, very well put together.
Hmm.
So yeah, that is my honorable mentions. Oh, 13 hours. Yeah.
What made um what made Midway higher than 13 hours to you when they're similar slots for a movie?
So for me, Midway barely beats out 13 hours because it's just a better visual experience. Plus, planes. I love planes. The sound. Uh, I've always loved, that kind of stuff. Plus the history. That's just a great combination for me personally.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. My number one movie of all time is Braveheart. Braveheart to me is an absolutely perfect movie. I would change nothing about it. I love the cinematography. I love the acting. I love the soundtrack. I love the war scenes. I love this sense of freedom. And Braveheart to me, when I talked about earlier how much I really love Goodwill Hunting, it does a similar thing for me where it's like movie therapy. Um, when I watch Braveheart, I want to be better. I want to be somebody who knows how to use this. I want to be somebody who looks at a situation and breaks it down. I want to be someone who creates good opportunities for myself. I want to be someone who fights for freedom. I want to be somebody who wants a better life for my wife and for future kids, who wants a better life for you. I want to be that kind of person. It hits a protective instinct in me. I've always, when I was a kid, I got bullied more than I would have liked. And because I'm a bigger guy, I decided I wanted to stand up and fight for people. And it's a strong instinct in me. And it makes me want to live that, to protect people, to make sure that nobody's just taken advantage of and broken. It makes me want to create art that's beautiful because this movie is a piece of just incredible work. It makes me want to explore history more and the great heroes that are involved in that history. It makes me want to just be more. And I've never found another movie, another piece of art, another anything that has consistently made me want to be a better person, to stand a little taller, to be a little bit more honorable the way Braveheart does. every single time I watch it.
For me, to no surprise to anybody who knows me, but
Yeah.
my all-time favorite movie is The Princess Bride.
Okay. That's a great movie. I really like The Princess Bride. I think there's a little bit of separation for me because I heard we have what is it? The marriage line. I normally can say it. You know what I'm talking about, the marriage line. Marriage
Marriage.
bring us to
Marriage is what brings us here together
Yes.
today.
I had heard that 10,000 times growing up and I had never seen the movie. So when I watched it, I think I was expecting maybe a little too much and I was a little let down. Still think it's a very, very good movie, but why is it above something like Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers or Batman Under the Red Hood, Return of the Jedi? Some of these or not Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. Some of these really, really amazing classics that have truly stood the test of time.
For me, it's the perfect movie. There's a meme that goes around about it that's like,
Okay.
"Hey, do you want to watch a action movie? Princess Bride. Hey, you want to watch a romance movie? Princess Bride. Hey, do you want to watch a revenge movie? Princess Bride." Uh, and it's something that is it just grows. The more you watch it, the more you get out of it, the more the positive impact it has. It's just every time I watch it, I get a different thing out of it. I could watch it right now. I could watch it 24 hours from now and get two very different things from those uh, watches. Um, it'll make me laugh every time, and I can
Me
learn
either.
different things. It gets better. It gets deeper. I don't think it gets enough appreciation for just how deep that movie really is, and it's just a great, great movie to watch, and has a big impact, and it's one that everybody likes. I've never met anybody who hasn't liked it. I've met plenty of people who's it's not their favorite movie, but that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own perspective and opinions, and that's okay. But I've never met anybody who uh, hates The Princess Bride. It's just good entertainment for anybody who wants to watch it, and it's great for that.
Very cool, man. It's a good movie. And it's nice when you have something that you can come to every single time, whether you're happy, sad, somewhere in between, and it just makes your day a little bit better. And it sounds like that movie does that for you. That's a cool answer, man. I agree. And you're right. I still like the movie. I've never heard anyone who doesn't like the movie ever. It's just a likable movie. It's charming.
Well, thanks to everybody who listened to this. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you're interested in hearing more. Uh, give reviews. It's going to help out a ton. We're trying to grow. Um, thanks. And tune in for the next episode. We're going to go over our most disliked movies of all time.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.